Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another AQColor webinar. As always, my name is Richie, and with me is the wizard of AI art, Andrew Kavanagh. Please welcome him. Before we start, just have a few updates to share from BenQ. So PC World recently recognized the PD3225U as best of 2024 for monitors, earning the title of the most alluring IPS black monitor yet. This monitor offers deeper blacks through our 2001 contrast ratio, ensuring top-notch color accuracy and image quality. We also recently had a brand new monitor release on our designer line of monitors, the PDs, the PD2706U. This monitor has out-of-box color accuracy as well as the Hotkey Puck G2 for quickly accessing shortcuts, making it ideal for designers, and it also comes equipped with the AQColor fine-tuning technology as well as wide color gamuts through the 100% sRGB and Rec 79, making the PD2706U a great solution for boosting the work efficiency for designers. So in this webinar, Andrew is going to explore the creative and exciting features of Adobe Firefly and Photoshop AI. He'll guide you all through creating generative AI imagery using text-to-image techniques, as well as delve into the generative fill and expand features, demonstrating how these tools can enhance your own work. So feel free to ask any questions during the section. We'll be monitoring them throughout the webinar. Now, let's get started. Take away, Andrew.
Should I introduce myself? Or?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm a digital artist, and I do Photoshop and Lightroom tutoring and photo editing. I'm an Adobe community expert and an Adobe Express ambassador. And I'm a big fan of the BenQ monitors. I have the PD3225U, very rich color, very rich blacks, wonderful for photo compositing and working with photography, which I jump in a mix between Lightroom Classic and the Camera Raw filter in Photoshop. So yeah, great stuff. And shall I share my screen and jump on in? Okay, so just to let you know, I am at firefly.adobe.com. That's where you go for Adobe Firefly. Normally there is like a home page with other different options, but I am starting with the text to image. Well, first really the gallery, and then at the bottom is the area where I can do text to image. And the reason why I don't show you the home page is because I'm also a beta tester and pre-release, so I cannot show you some of the features that I'm accessible to. So let me start by grabbing a prompt. Okay, so here we are. First is, yes, this is the gallery. And one thing that you know about this, which is great, is you can scroll through, get general ideas for what type of imagery you want to work on. And then, of course, if you were to click on it where it says view, it would take you right to that image where you can tweak that prompt or use that exact prompt to create your own image. And then, as I will be showing you, there's plenty of different options that go with Adobe Firefly as you create. But yeah, a lot of good, anything from photo or photography focused kind of work, such as this sushi platter here, to very kind of illustration art, logo style images, photo compositing, general AI art. But yeah, all different kinds of styles, all kind of imagery you can create. Here's like a chocolate relief. Looks pretty good. And like a cartoon. So yeah, very good gallery and a great way to learn about prompts. So in this case, there is in the bottom middle prompt, describe the image you want to generate. I just paste in my prompt, which is a sentient being made of glass filled with crystals, exotic flowers, etc. And then when I hit generate on the bottom right, the button, it takes me into the Adobe Firefly kind of room. And then the first thing you'll notice is in the top left, it's telling me the model is set to Firefly Image 3. You can choose a previous model of Image 2, but Firefly Image 3 is got better detail, as you can see here on the images on the right. And then you do have options for aspect ratio. So this is set to square 1:1, but if you click on it, you have a landscape, portrait, and then widescreen. So if you're going to create, like, say, a banner for either either a YouTube video or say a Facebook group, you can choose widescreen 16:9. And then I will get to some of the other options down below, but for now, content type, you can choose either art or photo. If you do art, you get images like this. If you choose photo, it does reach out and gets images from the Adobe stock library. So it's not just, as people think, stealing images from the web or something like that. It is from a source of Adobe stock library. And then it also has the auto options. So it can, obviously, if something is very descriptive, they might suggest that it be art as opposed to a photo. And then I will be getting into structure reference and styles. Now under styles for visual intensity, I tend to pull that to the right. And then there is also for styles a reference option where you can upload an image. And then I'll get into the effects. So the first thing is though is, I did the prompt and it's new to make it art. You can click on the image, you get a larger preview. And then if you hit the right arrow, you can cycle through. I like this image. I like the first one too. But so the one thing I always do when I'm working in Firefly and I like the image is first I always go to the top right and I hit download. So then you can download it to your desktop. If you go to the top left under edit, that's where you can do generative fill. You can also generate similar. So if you want to do a series based on this one image, you can also, even though it shows you it's in the options in the panel on the left, you also have a direct way to go to use this as a structure reference or a style reference. And then they're prompting you to also be interactive and design in Adobe Express. So if you choose add text, add shapes, or create social post, it'll take you into Adobe Express. Now, if I click out and then go to the bottom, you can save it as a favorite. And then the upload icon, if you click on that, you can copy the link to image, copy the image, save to library, or submit to gallery. Now, if you submit to gallery, that is similar to what I showed you in the beginning of all the different images. So it just, has your name associated, and it lets you know that if it is added to the gallery, anyone can view the image, use and remix the prompt, reference files, and additional parameters, and they can also like the image. So I tend to just do that to share images that I'm proud of or like that I've created in Adobe Firefly. Pretty quick to go there. And then bottom left, if you hover your cursor, you can also rate your own work. And there is a report section. So I guess if for any reason you think the image is offensive, your own image, if your own image is offensive, you can report yourself. And then if I hit the right arrow, I can kind of cycle through. And I like this one too. So I might download that as well as save as favorite and submit to gallery. Any questions so far, Richie?
No, sir. No questions that come in. I just
Okay,
think that means you're doing a clear and concise job.
great. So yeah, so the main thing is, the prompt is the most important aspect. And you don't have to think, does it have to be very descriptive, very extensive? Sometimes even a very like 1 or 2 word title, it does just fine as a prompt. So you can experiment that way. But of course, the more text that you put in, the more descriptions you put in, the more definition you can get or get exactly what you're looking for. So from there, I'm pretty happy with these images, but as an example, if I go back over to the left, I'm going to make a couple changes. So first, aspect ratio, I will make that widescreen. And because of the nature of the text prompt and the theme, I'm going to keep it as art. And then for structure reference, the way that this works, they do have some different kind of structure reference images you can choose from. But if you're going to put in your own prompt, what I like to do is I will tend to either create previous images in Adobe Firefly or in other AI apps such as Leonardo or Microsoft's, was it now, Image Creator from Designer. And then I can use those as structure references if I think they have some good detail. So as an example, under structure for reference, I just click upload image, and then I'm set to, I have a today folder, and I've already created the same type of image in Leonardo. So I click on this one image, I hit open. Just reminds you, composition reference helps you apply a particular outline and depth to the images you generate. You must have the rights to use any third-party images. Hit continue, and it doesn't automatically do it yet. So you can still go down, and then I can tweak the visual intensity of the style, and then I can either choose also another image as reference for style, or choose one of the things they're suggesting here. So if I choose this as an example, this neon purple magenta mix, it will take over that kind of aesthetic theme. So I'm just going to move the strength slider over as well. And then when you get down to effects, you have so many options. So, you know, if you go to all, there's different Art Deco, or different movements such as Art Deco, Art Nouveau, Cubism, Fauvism, Film Noir. And just be aware that though, if you choose something, like if I go back up to reference, if you choose something with a lot of color and vibrance, such as this neon image, don't disqualify what you're trying to focus on by choosing something like Film Noir, because that'll subdue the colors and you know, desaturate. So just be, you know, conscious of the choices you make and make sure that they're complementary of the previous choices. Okay, so as I go down, I don't know, vaporware sounds like it could be fun. So I choose that. And then there's even more themes: digital art, graphic, graffiti, and then there's techniques. I don't want it to get too busy, so I'm just going to kind of scroll down. And then under that, there's also effects, bokeh, antique, color explosion, dark. And then under that is materials, lots of options. So there's even like charcoal drawing, marble, polka dots, and then concepts, and then color and tone. So if I go to color and tone, if I wanted to change the color, I could say vibrant colors. But since I chose vaporware as a different reference, I'm not going to double up the kind of concept. But for lighting, I will choose surreal lighting. I'm a fan of that. But as you can see here, there's a lot of great options. So you can do backlighting, dramatic, golden hour, harsh light, etc. I'm just going to choose surreal lighting for now. And you can even change the camera angle. So you can do like a close-up, knolling, landscape, macro photography, shot from above, shot from below. For now, I'm just going to keep it as is. So we have the style reference for the neon. We have a structure reference of the other image similar that I made in Leonardo AI. We have the vaporware effect and surreal lighting. So now when I hit generate, it takes just a few seconds. As you can see, it's formatted for the widescreen, 16:9.
Hey, Andrew, can you take some questions
Sure.
real quick? All right, so I had a question from Ben. He says he currently has a subscription to Adobe and OpenArt.ai. Does Firefly use its own LLM AI, or does it source from OpenArt AI?
What, LLM AI?
Yep.
I've never heard of that. I'm not sure what that is. So, yeah, I mean, you could probably do a search and find out like the details for the tech details like that, but I'm not even sure what LLM AI is. Okay, now back to the image. As you can see here, there's more vibrance because it used this image, the neon image, as style reference. There's obviously a lot more magenta and purple. And it's also, because of the structure reference I chose, doing a side profile. So that is a good way to have more control over your image instead of just putting in a prompt and kind of hoping for the best. These are all pretty good images I like, so I might just download. Now I can also just go to the download all button in the top right. They're pretty similar to each other, but just I'll kind of look at them in more depth later. So I just hit download, downloads all four. Yeah, Firefly wants to ask if I can download all. Yes, of course. And Yeah, pretty cool though.
Another question, real quick, Andrew.
Yes.
All right, so following up from Ben's last question, LLM stands for large language model. That's how we communicate with AI. Does Firefly use its own, or does it source from
No,
OpenAI?
no idea. No idea.
Okay, and then one from
I'm a visual artist. My focus is to create as appealing or um, enticing an image as possible. I love what I do, and um, I know some of the rules or most of the rules in terms of Adobe, such as the content initiative and all that. But I don't know technical things like that. That's not my focus. So
okay,
okay,
then
so
sorry, real quick, one more question from Brett. Can you use your own photographs in Firefly?
let me go back here. So if I go back, move that over. So as I just showed you with the structure reference, the main gist of it is that you put in a prompt that's descriptive of what you want. And then when you go to structure reference, you can upload an image such as I did, which has this, side profile with the flowers and the crystal, and it used that as a structure reference. But at the moment, you can't like have a direct, like I can't have like a portrait of myself that I upload and then add elements by putting in text prompts. I do suspect they are working on that, and that will be a wonderful feature in the future. But for now, you can only use a structure reference that can suggest elements like this, where it's side profile and picks up on the kind of layout of, say, the crystals and the flower distribution. Does that help?
Okay, thank you. And then one more question. Are you able to ask it to create a vector version complete with layers, which you can then open in Illustrator and edit manually?
No, I don't think that. When you're in Firefly, as you can see here, there's no like layers panel. So it's not like it can create layers and then you can like export that and then open it in, like you said, Illustrator. The good news is though, you can, if you had like say a Photoshop layered file, you can import that into Adobe Express and then work on that there, where you can then also then add the Adobe Firefly or generative AI elements, because that's a big focus for Adobe right now, is bringing this Adobe Firefly technology into most apps. So Adobe Firefly is standalone. It's also in Photoshop and Photoshop Beta, like I will show you later today. It's in Adobe Express. It's in Adobe InDesign now, and it's also in Adobe Acrobat, and it's in Adobe Illustrator. So they are bringing it more and more into it. And there's obviously going to be more of a focus for video too. So generative AI with video. So, yeah.
Okay, then another one came in. To add to that last question, are you able to add specific illustrative objects to the original pictures?
Okay, so that's kind of what I was about to do. Okay, so here I am in this image. Now, like I said, if I go up to the top and I say, generative fill, it brings me into this kind of new window. And then there's kind of like the brush with the plus sign. So, and you'll see over on the left, it says insert, remove, expand. So this is where I can do, generative fill, where I can insert an image that I will put the prompt in after I brush the section that I want it to be at. Or as you can see, you can remove an element and you can also do expand. So under insert, if I go here with this image, I'm kind of seeing in my mind's eye a hummingbird. So I'm just going to paint the general size and location of what I want. And then as you can see here in the middle, it says enter prompt. So I'm just going to say hummingbird. And I think it's smart enough that you don't have to say like flying hummingbird. I think it knows. And then here is the brush settings though. Like if I were to click there, I could choose the brush size, hardness, and opacity. Just be aware, of course, that if you were to change the opacity, it might subdue your image that you're trying to place there. So if I want a hummingbird that looks real and the brush opacity was brushed with only 20% opacity, it might blend with the kind of purple background and look like see-through. So just click off there. And then I'm just going to hit generate, the generate button at the bottom right. That's pretty cool. So the nice thing is it reads the composition and the color of the composition. And you'll see with this hummingbird, it has that magenta on its wing and even on the kind of body stomach. So it's trying to match up. And then it gives you 3 variations at the bottom. So if I click on here, so that's the first one. That's the second one. It looks like it's dropping a little water. And then there's the third one. So just for the sake of showing the different options, I'll choose this one because then I can then go over to the left and choose remove. I'll say stay to keep the edits here. Looks like it might jump me out of the image though. So before it does anything, I'm just going to hit download. So yes, always be kind of professionally paranoid about saving your work. So in this case, you don't do a save, but you can download your work. Hit the download button top right whenever you like an image so that you won't lose it. And then just so I have it, I'm going to download the other variations. Yeah, maybe just, so if I go here and I hit remove, I want to be able to take that out, but when I hit the leave button, it does kind of keep me here, but it's not giving me the brush that I want. Yeah. Okay, now if I go to expand, okay, now that works. So if I hit expand, that's where we do generative expand. You get this kind of bounding box. It looks like you could crop it in. But of course, if I hold the option key and I pull the tab on the right, it doesn't work. I think it works in Photoshop if you hold the option key. Here, it just lets you do one side at a time. But say I move it this far, and say I even like the left side, I'll just keep it the way it is. But I've expanded, I want to expand it on the right. I just pull it out a bit, and then I'm going to get rid of the prompt because I don't want it to add. Well, I'm kind of curious. So I'm going to keep the word hummingbird, and then when I hit generate, see if it will add that correct gradient background from magenta into purple and add a hummingbird. It might just ignore, yeah, it might just ignore the hummingbird. And then I can click on the second one. Yeah, it's not perfect. So you'll notice if you were to look in the way I can see it, I'm not sure if you can see it in zoom, but there is a bit of a band between the original image and the extension, which is no big deal. If I download it, I can always bring it into Photoshop and just kind of retouch it out. But yeah, it's interesting that it, even with when you keep that hummingbird text, it ignores it and just does generative expand. Any questions, Richie?
Yeah, we had one from Stacy.
Okay.
Can you move inserted generative elements to another location or modify them in any way after they've been inserted?
Okay, so let me see if I can get back to. I might have to go back to. Yeah, so I'm just back to the original. I don't want to do generative fill. Yeah, so I'm back here. In fact, I did want to work on another image, so maybe I'll just try that here. So I'm going to do a coloring sheet with intricate designs, the form of a goddess magic spawner. So I just go to the middle area. Now, that's one thing to be aware of. So they're showing you the prompt of what the background is. So, you know, always be sure to make sure that you go in and click on that and delete it to put your own prompt in before you hit generate, or it will take a few of those generative AI tokens. So you have a certain amount of tokens to your account. So I just select, then delete, post in a new prompt, hit generate, and then I'm back to this. And then I'm going to do what you asked. I'm going to add an element to it, fresh. Oh, that's nice. Kind of went straight to full view, which is nice. These are pretty cool. I like that. Pretty nice, right, Richie?
Love it.
Create my own coloring book here. And then, ooh, this one's got even though it's like a coloring sheet style, this one has a bit more depth to it, which is kind of nice. And that's totally different style. So they're giving you like variations. I like this one too, so download. But for the sake of lesson, I go here, go to the top, and then I say generative fill. So I'm gonna do another hummingbird, see if I wonder if it's gonna make it black and white for this composition. So I'm just gonna go over here, prompt at the bottom, hummingbird, hit generate. And I wonder if it's gonna make it like in the style of this coloring sheet and make it black and white. And then I'll be able to show you what happens. So it did keep it black and white, so it read the image and it's keeping it with that theme. And then once again at the bottom, you can click and go to the different variations. That's kind of nice. I like that one. And they're all kind of nice. But like this. Now the thing is, when you are in a Firefly and use this, generative fill, and you add an element like this, it's asking, do you want to keep the image? And then you can like download it here. But there is no way that I can click on it and move it around. And then if I can move the zoom window. So I think we've been here for about a half an hour, gone over a lot of the Adobe Firefly features. So I'm going to jump into Photoshop Beta, which I can then show you the difference of options that they have. Sound good, Richie?
Yeah, I had a couple more questions come in. Okay, so for this image, can it generate an SVG file for download?
Okay, so if I hit download, it just tends to download the Firefly PNG image. It doesn't, at the moment, I'll say it that way. At the moment, it does not do that, but that is a great request. And I think for sure they're going to have those type of options in the future. And there might even be an option where instead of just, like if you go to the, where is it? So if I say keep, and then I go back, right? So every time I go to generative fill, it kind of like knocks me out. So I have to go back. So if I go back here, and it's just quickly populating an image. Once the image is here, come on. It's pretty fast though, really, considering.
Yeah.
Okay, so something went wrong. I don't want to use up too much of my prompts because I want to use them for Photoshop. But let me try to see if it'll generate again. But the point is I'm trying to make is when the image shows up, there is that edit button in the top left where it does have other options, where I presume in the future that you're going to have even more options like open in Illustrator. Oh, that's interesting. So now it went beyond the coloring sheet and even made it, more like a, AI art kind of image. Yeah. This one's interesting how it's kind of blurry looking or like, and how many fingers does she have? 9 fingers on this one hand. But okay. But yeah, pretty nice. And this like a good coloring book for sure. You could do a whole series like that. Okay. But for the sake of showing you the capabilities, you're not just limited to Firefly. If I open up Photoshop Beta, you can see that just fine, Richie.
Yep. And then you're probably going to go into this, but what is the benefit of using Firefly over Photoshop since Photoshop has been improving their generative fill for the past year or two?
Sure. Okay. So the only real difference I've noticed is, let me just go back to Firefly, is with all these options, They are building them more extensively in Photoshop Beta, but I do think that the amount of effects, well, just click that, amount of effects in terms of movements, themes, techniques, more effects, materials, all that is much more extensive in Firefly. So if you want more options, plenty of options. I mean, just this one area itself, 3, 6, 9, 12. There's at least 15 in one area. So for sure, there's probably 90 to 100 options, not including going to color and tone, lighting, and the camera angle. So I'm now, any other questions related to Firefly before I jump into Photoshop?
Yeah, this one's more so just regarding AI art as a whole. So, how is copyright tied into this? Are these images that we create, are they ours entirely, or are we restricted on what we can do due to copyright?
Right. So in the beginning, it was like Firefly beta, and the warning would pop up and say that, you can't use these images commercially, but you can now use these images commercially. And, there's people who probably will create an image in Firefly, bring it into Express or InDesign or Photoshop, add text and use it for social promos, maybe in print. So yeah, all those options now to use images commercially are available. Yep. Are we good to go to Photoshop beta now?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you, Andrew.
So just zoom over to Photoshop beta and you can see the background, right? Yep,
That's
just
right.
black. Okay. Now, before I do that, just to familiarize with how you get Photoshop beta. Once you are an Adobe Creative Cloud subscriber and you've installed the Creative Cloud app, you'll have an icon in the top right that looks like a infinity symbol cloud. Once you click on that, it might originally look like this, which is just, all apps, tells you what apps you have installed, and then you can click and go through the different kinds of apps. So even through the Creative Cloud app itself, you can get to Adobe Firefly and try the different things. You can also go to Illustrator, etc. You can go graphic design, video. So, and they're telling you, like, once you click on say video, they tell you can launch Express or go to Premiere Pro. In my case, I'd have to install it. But then right underneath, they're telling you all the different apps that you can install. I'm not the biggest video guy, so as you can see, these are not installed. But if I go up to say photo, most of the photo ones are installed. And then underneath those categories is the beta apps. So if you go to beta, there's a little kind of preview telling you next gen is AI is now in Photoshop beta with the white background. And you'll see in my case, Photoshop beta is up to date and it says open. If you have not installed it, it would be listed here, similar to the Illustrator beta, and you would just click the install button. So once it's installed, it'll be in your apps folder. And then I think if you're on a PC, you right click and you can add it to say your desktop. On a Mac, you can just add it to your dock at the bottom. So in my case, I have Photoshop Beta, the regular Photoshop, Lightroom Classic, and Lightroom. So in that case, it's already installed. I'm in Photoshop Beta. So the way it works is, when you go into Photoshop, you can open a file, you can create a new file. So if I do Command N on a Mac, and it defaults to the recent sizes I worked on. So say I was doing social, 1080 by 1080. And I'm gonna just call it Generative AI in Photoshop. So 1080 by 1080, white background, sRGB. I just hit create. Once I do that, here's my empty document. This is the contextual taskbar that always appears underneath, and you can move it around. And also, if you don't like it to be too close to your image, you can click the 3 dots and you can either hide the bar, reset the bar position, or pin the bar position. So I tend to pin the bar underneath my image so it's not too close. But the way that this works, pretty helpful. is once I have this, I can just click import image or generate image. So if I say, and let me grab a new prompt. So this one I had fun with recently. So once you have a new document, in the contextual taskbar, generate image will appear. Now, once I click that, it's kind of mimicking Adobe Firefly. So you have an area where you can describe the image you want to generate. So I just paste that there. And then you can choose content type, art or photo. In this case, I'm going to say art. And then if I had a reference image, which I do, but I'm going to try it first without, I can upload by clicking choose image on the right, a reference image for the kind of composition of the character that I want. Now, once I hit effects, you'll see it's similar to Adobe Firefly. So it has all those, under all, it has 3D, acrylic paint, Art Deco, Art Nouveau, etc., charcoal, chiaroscuro. And then as I scroll down, there's film noir. I might have to use film noir just because I have more fun with all these effects. There's so many of them. And then you just keep going. And then it's a little bit more limited. So that is the difference. I go to movements, themes, techniques. And so the main thing you'll notice is it does not give you the same options for like the kind of perspective, like the camera perspective, close up, macro photography, and it doesn't give you the options for lighting, at least for now. So it's not giving you the options for, warm tone or, sunset lighting. So in this case, I have my prompt set to art, and I'm just for now going to just hit generate. So you get a little generating preview. And then one of the main differences is, that's pretty cool though. So let me just make it larger. So one of the main differences is when it comes to, just move the zoom panel, right? Maybe up there. So the main difference is when you're in Photoshop Beta, Properties panel is one of the most important panels when you're working on generative AI. So if you don't see it, just like any other panel that you do want, you just go up to Window, and that's where you can do it. So like if you need your Actions panel or your Tools, etc., they're always under Window, same as your layers. And that's also where you get your contextual taskbar and your properties. So if you didn't see properties, you would choose properties here. So once I have the properties panel open, you can see the prompt. You then also have the icon to upload a reference image and then more options. And then there's two different options or different ways to cycle through what you have created. So you can right in the properties panel, click on the different images. It's kind of scary. I like them though, it's pretty cool. And then you also have it here in the contextual taskbar. You see 3 out of 3. So if I click the left, I can also zoom through the different options. And then when I'm over here, just move the zoom thing down. When I'm over here, you'll see in the layers panel, you have the generative AI layer, which you can turn on, turn off. And then of course, if you go back to properties panel, you have to be in. So this is a good thing. So if you somehow clicked onto the background layer and you go to your properties panel, you're like, what happened to all my options? Where are all the images? You just click on the correct layer. And when you go back to properties panel, you have the 3 different images. So if you were to save this as a Photoshop layered file, you would have access to the 3 variations. Now, while you're in Photoshop itself, if I just hit the F key, I get a full screen view, hit the plus key so I can zoom in. A couple things I like to do while I'm in Photoshop with these type of images. First is I tend to go up to filter, and then if I go to camera raw filter, and then zoom out just a little bit, just maybe one. Over on the right, I can go to color, and I can make it warmer or cooler. So I want it to be a little bit more blue. So I pull that to the left. I move vibrance to the right, about 17, and then saturate. I've noticed when I move saturation to the right, it will give color to the warm tones, the glowing lotuses here. And then when I go to light, I can tweak the exposure just a little bit. I'm more concerned about maybe contrast, gives a bit more kind of depth to it. If the highlights are blown out, I will move them to the left, maybe like 18. And then whites, I usually move to the right to give a little bump. And then if I go down here to this little icon, it's the toggle for the default settings. I can click to see before. You can see it's kind of warm and kind of muted. Now when I click again, much more vibrant, colorful, much more contrasty. And then I can even go to effects where I can move the texture slider to the right, about 20. One thing I've learned though is when it comes to more art type images, when you do texture, there's not much you can do with certain areas that are kind of almost kind of flat illustration. It's only when there's a lot of different detail, like these kind of strands of hair and the little dots in the forehead, that will add texture or sharpening to it. I tend to shy away from clarity because it's a bit heavy-handed, like see how it changes the whole kind of tonal makeup. And if you go to an extreme, the one thing that to remember in Camera Raw, which is also the same in Lightroom, you double click a tab, you go back to 0 defaults. In this case, you can also add a vignette if you want. So if I go to the right, it adds a light vignette. If I go to the left, it adds a dark, which I might do just for focus on the image. And then if I hit OK, it brings me back. And because it was already a generative AI layer, it adds the access to Camera Raw filter as a smart filter. So I can turn it on, turn it off as a preview. I can also, turn it off here or by next to the smart filter. But you'll see the white of the smart filter. That just means that if I click on that and I choose a brush, okay, it doesn't like for some reason. Okay, there. So B for brush, it worked the second time. There it is. And then if I use the left bracket, makes it smaller, right bracket makes it larger. So if I make it larger and black is my foreground color and I've selected that built-in layer mask in the smart filter, I can see what was before. So maybe I want, instead of that kind of bold color around the lotuses, I can erase. I'm going to make the flow more like a 40. And then with black is, oops. Okay, so this is good. So mistakes are good. What happens is it shows you that for some reason when I jumped around to change the settings, it created a new empty layer. So just do Command Z, make sure you've selected that frame around the layer mask. And then now when I paint with black, it erases it. And if I don't see it, I can just make the flow stronger. And then now when I paint with black, it takes away some of that kind of bright color and brings it back to more subdued colors around the lotuses. Before, after. Any questions, Richie?
Yeah, I had a couple. So going back to Firefly, can Firefly generate 3D models yet? Those are .obj files.
Yeah, no. So it's, I would imagine it might be on their radar, but for now that they're not even doing that. I do know that there's a lot of interest in video as well. So, I do imagine there's going to be a lot of great generative AI in video, which I think there already is. Like in Adobe Premiere, I believe there's ways that you can fix audio as well as add elements into the video, and it kind of takes it through the different timeline. So, yeah, but I mean, give them time, and it's soon enough. All that stuff that you ask for will be. And I think if I don't have the link, but if you were to do a search for recommendations, like Adobe app recommendations or Adobe Firefly app suggestions, you'd be able to find a site where you can then put in your ideas. So you could suggest that to them. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right, and then one more question. I like this question. Could you use this picture as a reference image to create a fire version of this character, like in Firefly?
Absolutely. So, in fact, let me just do that. So I'm just going to go to image duplicate, and then I'm just going to say, I'm just going to call it alien. So I say EN, right? That's alien EN. Yeah. So I just made a duplicate of it. I flattened it and say I'm just going to save it as a JPEG. I'm going to go to make sure copyright here. And I'm just going to export to my today folder. Okay. And then if I go back to Firefly, so when I chose the original, I said an ethereal beauty fantasy creature submerged in, what was it originally? Blue still pond. It references that blue, it referenced that kind of look, maybe a kind of more pretty look to it. And then once I add things like fire surrounded by molten ash, it makes it a little bit more kind of like a dragon type of image. So that's interesting. It's always kind of like moving with your suggestions. I still like it though.
So what if you use the water original as a reference? Could you then change the crown, for example, to fire with the method that you just did?
Say that again. What's the question?
So if you use the last water image as a reference, could you change the crown, etc., for uh, to fire with generative fill?
Sure. So that's why I'm a big fan of saving as you go. So make sure you save this stuff. So I save it. So I saved that earlier. So now if I go here, I can go to the Photoshop file. I'm gonna hit F so it's full screen, make it a little bit larger so you can see. And then if I go over to properties, I also have the 4 options. So first one, second one, third one. So if I had this one seems probably most appropriate. So now if I go here and then I take a, say, lasso tool, and I then see that generative fill pops up. When I click that, it says, what would you like to generate? So I could say crown made of fire. And then when I hit, just see what other, so yeah, those are just the options for that. And then once again, that's the option for reference. So if you already did have a, say, crown made of fire on another image, you could click to upload a reference image. This should be pretty direct. I don't think you need a reference image. So I'll just hit generate. And it should maintain it to the space on top of the head. Oh, it's kind of cool crown. It's not the most fiery crown, but that one's floating. Here's like an ice crown, floating crown. Okay, so fire. So now if I'm not happy with that, I could say, okay, well, maybe I don't need to say crown made of. Maybe I'll get rid of that and just say fire crown. Maybe just moving the descriptions around. And when I hit generate, it is reading the same selection previously and will create a new set of 3. So you don't have to go back and create that same selection. Okay, still likes to keep it. Here's one that's a bit more cartoony, but it is more like fire. The one thing I like about this though is the first one, it has a crown, which is on top. The second one, it reads the image and literally rebuilds this kind of hair, which completely matches the style of illustration that it was originally, and then adds a little fire. It's still a little bit shy about the fire, but I think that these drawings are really great though. I think it's seamless, Any questions? And I think we're at the hour, right, Richie?
Yes, we are. No other questions came in yet, but if anyone had questions about anything through these processes, please drop them.
Right. And so, yeah, the main thing to do is, when you're working in Photoshop Beta and creating these images, make sure to save the PSD version because then you have access to the variations so you can go back and make changes like we just did. So I'm going to save this again, and then it'll take the 6 variations instead of the 3. A lot of fun here, though. It's like endless what you can do.
Yeah, I like how interactive this one felt.
So, question I have for you, Richie, do you prefer, with what you've seen today, would you prefer to work on creating an image in Adobe Firefly or rather creating it in Photoshop Beta?
Personally, I would choose to create an image through Firefly, but overall, my personal preference is Photoshop AI just because Photoshop's what I'm most comfortable with, and the tools that are provided with the AI, they're just more beneficial to what I use it for.
Great. And do remember that once you've created a series of images in the Firefly, as long as you download them, you can bring them into Photoshop Beta and then add all these wonderful other elements with generative fill. So cool.
You working with all these elements reminded me of the AQColor design contest we have going on right now for the next couple months. The theme is actually the four elements, so earth, air, wind, or earth, air, fire, and water. So
Nice.
if anyone watching is interested in participating in that, just head on over to our website. It should be like on the main page for more information, so you can take a look at that.
And if you want to use any of these images for that promotion of that contest, just let me know and I'll send them along.
Just go ahead and take a screenshot real quick.
Well, I'll give you a better quality version if you want, though. Yeah.
All right, Andrew with the assist.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah. I don't think anyone has any other questions, so I think we can wrap it up now. Andrew, thank you so much for providing a fantastic deep dive into Adobe Firefly and Photoshop AI features. I learned a lot. It was really interactive. I hope everybody found valuable insights here, and you guys feel inspired to take these tools and create your own beautiful images of art to uh, hang in your living room. Uh, it was also wonderful to see where everyone's tuning in from. Everyone's participation really made this session feel more special. Our next AccuColor webinar will be next Thursday, the 18th, featuring travel photographer and filmmaker Espan Toro. So be sure to register as you won't want to miss this.
He's a great
Thank
photographer.
you. Sorry, what were you saying, Andy?
He's a great photographer too. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I love his work. He was really busy. It was tough to squeeze this
and
one
can I
in.
give a quick shout out to my group just to,
Of course, you can.
yeah. So just to let people know, they probably know, some people know already, the Photoshop and Lightroom group, which had 390,000 members that I worked very hard at. Facebook is going through some changes, and I think the bots have falsely flagged some of the posts, and therefore gave some violations to the original group, and then lowered the quality status and said that we could lose the group if more violations happen, which they don't even show you what the violation is, which is very frustrating. So if you try to disagree with the decision, they end up saying you don't have any proof. It's like, well, then give me proof. So bottom line is, if you go to that group, Photoshop and Lightroom, it should say, if you're not already in it, says 389,000. There should be information up top to join the new Photoshop and Lightroom group. So same name, same focus, but for now it only has about 2,000 members as opposed to 390,000. But just trying to take precautions in case they do delete it. I care about my members, so if they do delete it, keep your eye out for the other Photoshop and Lightroom group. Come and join the new Photoshop and Lightroom group. Thanks.
Yeah, great group. Don't want to be excluded from that one. Uh, hey, Thank you, everyone, for taking the time in your busy schedule to join us. This webinar will be sent out to everyone in a couple of business days for you to reference and look back on. And we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. All right, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.